Hey guys, welcome back to the Imprenditor 21 workshop. This will be the second and last day of this workshop. The journey has been thrilling and fun. So stay tuned to hear more amazing info about entrepreneurship today. To start everything off, I'd like to invite Esundu Disanaika to welcome you all to this memorable day.
Thank you, Minindu. Good evening, distinguished invitees, teaching charge, Madam Ashika Peris, Board of Officials, my fellow committee members, and aspiring entrepreneurs. On behalf of the organizing committee and as the chairperson, I, Esandu Disanayaka, consider this as a great honor to welcome you all for the second day of Imprenditor 21, organized by the Entrepreneurs Club of Ananda College. We believe that you had the privilege to explore new dimensions in entrepreneurship by listening to two of our veterans yesterday. They were Professor Nalina Bezekara and Dr. Ruchita Perera. According to the responses we received soon after those sessions, we are very confident of learning outcomes of those two sessions. Your encouraging feedbacks motivates us to take our collaboration into more higher. I must highlight at this moment the mission of Entrepreneurs Club of Ananda College, that is to upscale the mindset of youth in Sri Lanka by guiding them on practical entrepreneurial skills and enlightening them with financial literacy through guiding sessions, motivation, and awareness about the gigantic concept of entrepreneurship. As we all know, entrepreneurship is not a simple science that anyone can practice. So Sri Lanka would have much more entrepreneurs than the current rate, which is less than 3% of total employment. And also, we know that most of new business startups fail to sustain in long run. It may not because they do not have good business ideas, but mainly because they do not have the right skills and knowledge to transform these concepts into fruitful businesses, and also to keep motivation and tolerance in difficult periods. This COVID-19 pandemic has given us a golden opportunity to experience how different businesses face such challenging situations, and also how some are using the same challenging environment for new business ideas. Today, being the second and last day of our program, we will have two resource personnel who have demonstrated their entrepreneurial skills by practice to bring in more of their own insights to this audience. So it's with great pleasure and also with our highest gratitude, let me warmly welcome our guest speakers for today, Dr. Sankalpa Gambarige and Ms. Rai Balza. They will take you to new horizons of digital entrepreneurship, business values, and social entrepreneurship, which are proved to be the most dynamic and profitable sectors in modern world. As we all are experiencing a new digital era in the post-pandemic situation, which someone would call as the fifth industrial revolution, which the digitalization and social capital optimization are the mostly demanded. In this context, as the Entrepreneurs Club of Ananda College, we cordially invite you, especially the aspiring entrepreneurs, to join with us and be with us to explore these new horizons today. To conclude my inaugural speech for today, let me warmly thank all those who supported us to bring this forum forward and congratulate all the aspirant entrepreneurs and wish them all success in their future. Thank you. I request my colleague Minitu you to lead the program forward.
Thank you, Esundu, for that warm welcome. And beforehand, I'd like to inform that if you do have any related questions you need to ask from our respected invitees, feel free to drop them down in the chat box. It's the year 2021. We are in the middle of the digital age. Some even argue that the smartphone is a digital extension of our bodies. It's at a point where we are dependent on our technology for most of the sensitive data and control of various crucial activities. But recently, we have observed that technological progress has slowed down. Is this because we are reaching a point where we cannot progress further, or is it the lack of an entrepreneurial solution to this issue? To explain about digital innovation, I'd like to invite Dr. Sankalpa Gamwarige, an innovative digital transformation partner and tech talent enabler with more than 20 years of industry experience, a contributor to many national initiatives and forums, and a member of the Board of Studies, Faculty of Graduate Studies, and Academic Committee of BIT External Degree Program of the Faculty of IT, University of Moratuwa.
Thanks, Minindo. Can I start the session, Mildu? Mildu, the echo is coming from. Okay. Let me share my screen. Can all of you see my full screen?
Yes, sir.
Okay, right, good. So, good evening to everyone. So, it's a great happiness to hear that more and more young people want to inculcate entrepreneurial skills. I think that skill set is one of the most important skill sets of this generation. Why I said is that skill set is the main skill set even would be looked after by companies when they are recruiting yours. So entrepreneurial skill set is not only applicable for you to start your own business, it can be applied in many dimensions. Uh, I think I don't want to go and explain more about what is entrepreneurship, but there are different terminologies which has been coined in the world for people with such skills who are contributing immensely to make a difference. For what? To make a difference to solve problems in the world. So I think entrepreneurs or entrepreneurial skills important aspect is to find answers for mankind's problems. So that's the term. So entrepreneur, what they do, finding answers for mankind's problem, that is being terminology by innovation. So innovation is nothing to do with invention. It is much, much more than conventional invention. I would say conventional invention, people think how the success of an conventional invention as a creation of something new, getting a US patent or another patent, finding a very interesting piece of technology, machinery. But if that piece of knowledge, if that piece of machinery cannot, uh, if that piece of machinery cannot really make an impact to the human mankind, make a real positive experience, and make it continuously working there, and it is for an affordable price. If those sort of things won't happen, it is not an innovation because it has not served the purpose of solving a problem faced by humans. So, as everyone knows, innovation, they call, happens at the periphery of the problem. So, as I told you, where's the periphery of the problem? Wherever humans are there, it's a periphery of the problem. So, innovation always starts and ends with humans, with people. Whereas inventions are most of the time start with some form of a scientific problem, some form of a technology problem, and then people tend to come up with another different brilliant piece of answer. Now, sometimes most of these answers you may have heard big research institutes, they do lots and lots of inventions. Now, how to take that invention to mankind, there's another process. But most of such inventions have never reached to mankind and became innovation. They were just on its way, stagnated on the shelf. So invention, it's all about you do research, you find some form of a theoretical answer, you do simulation, right? And then you try to come up with some form of a prototype. Then those prototypes, you try to make it a complete product, and then you try to give a price, and then you try to take it and try to do market. And if you try to follow this path, there is a good percentage, at least 95% of the time, they would never become innovation. They would ended up in the shelf. But on the other hand, if we start something from the periphery of the problem, For example, let's say one of the periphery of the problems would be, okay, how to, these days there's a problem, we are talking about chemical fertilizer issues, and then how to reduce the weed in the paddies and all. So I want to share this particular very interesting success story of school level innovation, which was which was ranked at the World Economic Forum in Geneva. There were many interesting, these are all about school level, different innovative thoughts, right? Many schools have sent different innovative products. Most of them were really deep technology things. I think it was about 4 or 5 years ago, to Geneva-based World Innovation Competition. And interestingly, what won was a set of small children from a rural area in Kurunegala district who shared how to kill weeds by, we all know, let me use this term in Sinhala. We all know, do you know what is Vathura Bandhinawa? So Vathura Bandhinawa is all about to kill the weeds in a traditional manner. We are near Kala Kapala, පැත්තෙන් යන වතුර ටික ගෙනල්ලා සම්පූර්ණයෙන් වහලා ඒක මේ ආයි කම්ප්ලීට් කරලා තිබ්බහම අර ඔක්කොම තියෙන මේ ගස් මැරෙනවා. So they improve this particular methodology. They have done some sort of improvement, and then they created some form of report how this is really going to be effective, and they showed some interesting facts and how did they do even without chemical weedicide. And they showed it, and it got real attraction. So because that shows the sustainability, and because and it has a lot of applicability. Unfortunately, that even that innovation really couldn't make it happen due to many reasons. Now, if that innovation could have taken, now we could have called that is a real innovation if they could have taken it to the people who, to the farmers, and they try to use it and create some form of more and more practical usage around in their community. That could have been a real great innovation. I think that's already happening. So it's serving a problem. So likewise, what I want to highlight is when because we start to talk about digital innovation, a lot of the time the term digital, we tend to think it is, to do digital innovation, you need to have all high tech. It's not the case. For you to make an innovation, what I want to highlight is you need to figure it out, a problem faced by mankind. So if I go through this some form of comparisons of invention and innovation, creation of something new, we call it invention. The creation of something new plus its implementation and thereby the creation of value to the people who consume it, we call that innovation. Many inventions don't become innovations because they are not implemented and never create value. That's why I told you, right? Interesting inventions were there on that, whatever they selected the wrong journey. Sorry, many inventions don't become innovations because they are not implemented and never create value. So we have seen, right? If you go to the universities, we can see hundreds and hundreds of interesting projects they have done. They were falling into inventions, but ended up in the shelf. On the other hand, something we started with people's requirements, people's problems, they have already become better solutions. So inventions that are turned into innovations improve people's lives, because once it improves life, there is a set of customers for that. Help us to solve a need better than existing solution. So likewise, I think now you all are clear, right? The difference between invention and innovation. The reason is, I think we as entrepreneurs, I'm not really, really interested on making an invention, digital invention. There are lots and lots of great digital inventions, for which people have got many patents. I think, not to boast, even under my name, there are about 5 to 6 US patents. I have been part of that inventing team over the last 15 years because I'm part of US company in last 15 years working. And important part is not about a patent and having this interesting invention, but how can you take it to the field? How can you uh, uh, make it something happen to serve humans' needs? I think that is the important part. So, isn't there any questions so far from the, because since I'm not getting any feedback, it's more about a monologue. If I like to pause here and see if anybody is having any questions so far about invention and difference between invention and innovation, I like to take this moment and answer.
Sir, we have a dedicated Q&A session, sir.
Okay, right.
Yeah.
Okay, right. Cool. Well,
So, sir, we are collecting the questions and directing them after.
right. So so we were talking about innovation, right? So what's the difference between invention and innovation? We told innovation is all about to do something at the periphery of the problem. Where is this at the periphery of the problem? The periphery of the problems are there wherever humans are. So there's tons and tons of things, unsatisfied things for humans, which someone can find a solution and make it a sustainable solution and continuously supply and make it commercially viable. I think those sort of things can become a great uh, uh, digital can be great innovations leading to commercial success stories. Or there are certain innovations which may not be commercial success stories, but they may be more of social success stories. I think there would be a session to talk about social success stories, social innovation. So I'm not going to talk about those things, but my topic is about what is all about this digital innovation. And we talk about this innovation, right? So important part is if it is something to be innovation, again, there should be some problem humans are facing. We need to have a solution which can have a real satisfying and sustainable formula and which can be continuously sustained. That's the important part in innovation. Now, what is this digital innovation? So I don't have to tell what is digital to all of you, right? We all are in digital either. Today, I think no school. All of you are still in a total unstructured manner learning a lot, right? I think just consider glass is not as half empty as glass is half filled. There's an enormous amount of things there on the unstructured learning because we have almost come to a time where structured learning has really hindered our creativity, right? So I'm pretty sure last 2 years, a lot of people could have said, I think our kids didn't have proper education. But I know lots and lots of unstructured education was possible on digital platforms. On YouTube, there are enormous amount of different interesting, unstructured knowledge content where people can learn a lot and people can risk it. So that is one interesting space we are talking, right? Now imagine we all were on a digital transformation, the entire society, but pandemic really accelerated it, right? We all have identified that. Okay, so now talking about digital innovation, I think there are two types of digital innovations. One is existing organizations. They don't have any digital. They are being converted to digital. So they have that is that them to be do the innovation within their uh, existing box. So again, that has three parts. Obviously, what is digitization? Just these are three terms: digitization, digitalization, and digital transformation. What is this digitization? Digitization is simply converting paper records to digital records. Nothing other than that. But digitization itself is just a starting point. And interesting, I can still remember about 2000. This was happened in 2013 or 14. I was one person who started to talk a lot about data science and how data science can do a lot of interesting things. I was with one of my friends from Australia. We were talking about the importance of data science in one of the open forums, and some of these government people were there, and they said, wow, we talked about with the data, when you have a data lake, on top of that, when you apply algorithms, a lot of interesting things could have been happen, and we can predict and we can personalize. I can talk about a lot of things. And one, I think we were quoting examples from Target, where Target data science algorithms has identified one particular teenager and sent them a catalog of I think baby care products. Typically, that what has happened was those algorithms has identified what's the behavior of any pregnant mother, and whatever the sort of things they search, and then they identify that person could have been pregnant, and then she may be interested to buy things when she's getting about pregnancy is about 6 months or 8 months. They're sending baby care, whatever catalog. And that catalog has gone to that catalog, whatever book or something, has seen by that teen girl's father, and father was, and maternity related things, and father was really got upset, and he gone and somehow sued Target. But it ended up identifying that the girl is actually a teenager, is pregnant. She was hiding it. And how does this can happen? Because that they had created this full digitization, then digitalization, and the entire digital transformation, how to identify their customer and figure it out what sort of things they're looking for. And we were sharing this story with some of these people, and I think one government institute, they talk about, we want to do this data science and everything. How can we do? We said, fantastic, we can help you. So I assume you have enormous amount of tons of digital records already. That, I think it was census or some sort of big government institute. They said, no, we have all information. We asked where? No, they are in their physical record room on the pieces of physical material, so on the paper. So that's why even sometimes we are talking about these digital innovations, but we ended up finding interesting questions such as, people have forgotten the first step is they need to do a digitization of their system firstly. Especially I'm talking about conventional organizations, right? I'm not talking about organizations what you all may be starting now. However, as I told you, entrepreneurship is not only you are starting fresh businesses, right? You may be joining some old brick and mortar business where everything is in paper records, and there you may have to start this journey. You may not be an entrepreneur, but you may have to play that entrepreneur's role in that organization, how to transform that organization. So in that journey, you may have to go for digitization. And then next part is digitalization. What is the difference between digitization and digitalization? Now with that digitization, we are one-to-one converting our information or data to digital data. But now earlier we had some form of existing processes. Right now, how we are going to optimize those existing processes. For example, on a non-digitized analog world, there is a printed paper, someone has to sign and issue it. Now, what is digitalization? You don't have to do that manually, but you can introduce digital signatures into that. So again, that is only digitalization. But digital transformation is you are leveraging that technology, what you brought in, to do better business, to do new business, but on the same set of convention. So I think let me go to next slide. So this is actually a innovators that this talks about innovators dilemma. So there are two types of innovation, as I showed you, but one is a conventional existing organization try to use digital tools and technology to continue to do better and better. So this Nikon and Canon, Sony, these sort of cameras, right? They were using that digital technology and all these things to continuously improve their products, but suddenly those camera markets were totally disrupted by smartphones coming up with cameras. And what is the second one? What you can see my cursor? That is about Garmin. Garmin were one of the leaders in this map. So those days it may not be really seen in Sri Lanka, but I still could remember in 2004. That was the first time after my graduation I started, because from 2003 onwards I was working for different foreign companies, right? So my first foreign trip was to Winnipeg, Canada. And what they did was from airport onwards, okay, they booked a rent-a-car. We have to drive it. Oh man, so how to find navigation? That navigation part is we are renting out another additional, what is called, these Garmin or some other type of pathfinder, or we call it digital map, something. Or it is not that great as today's Google Map. We were using them. That was a big market. Even I bought my own one because always renting out that was expensive. Whenever I go to US or to Canada, I use that one and put from airport. I rent a car from Hertz or somewhere, and then drive that to whatever destination, stay there, and whatever 2 to 3 weeks, whatever office work done, return the car and come back. So I don't know the road. Unlike in Sri Lanka, you cannot stop and ask where's the road there. So this navigator, GPS navigator, we call that, played a big role. But I think when Android phones came up and Google started to introduce Google Maps, and Apple phones also introduced Apple Maps, and this GPS navigator got obsoleted. And similarly, Encyclopedia Britannica was, I think, the source for a lot of knowledge for us. And Wikipedia really disrupted that one. And I don't want to go each and every these things. You know what happened to how Netflix is now conquering. Uber and Lyft are really thrown out conventional rent-a-car and taxi companies like Hertz. And so I think most of you are maybe 15, 18, 21, or maximum 25. But if you go and ask from, say, your parents or someone with more than 10 or 15 years older to you, that time, if you ask, what is the media company in the world? They would call CNN. But today, what's the media company? It is Facebook. We never go to watch CNN or BBC. We go to Facebook because all snippets can be found there. Because colleagues are referring whatever the videos or whatever things we want to watch, news, everything comes from Facebook. Even my father, his preferred media is Facebook. He goes to Facebook and find news. Now, say 20 years ago, or not more than 25 years ago, conventional booksellers were there. But today, who is the biggest bookseller? It is Amazon. Amazon started totally disrupting conventional bookselling. And who is the biggest movie provider today? Netflix. Early days, it was Sony and Blockbuster. So those sort of people are totally now disrupted. So who was the biggest advertising business? I think there were different advertising agencies, but today it is Google. So who is the recruitment agency? There were many brands in the world. Today it is LinkedIn. And who is the best hotel room provider? I think the single company who had the largest number of hotel rooms was Hilton, and many other such big brands. But today it is totally disrupted by digital new ventures like Airbnb. So Hertz were one of the biggest taxi fleets, but it is Uber, Lyft, and those sort of brands. They don't own a single taxi. And payment was conventional, say Citibank or HSBC and all. But today, most of the transactions are happening on systems such as PayPal or Visa. And the store earlier, I think it could have been Walmart or Costco, that sort of stores, but everything is totally disrupted by digital stores like Amazon. So these are well-known facts for that digital disruption. So totally they disrupted the conventional companies. All these companies, I would say they were digitally innovating, but the way they were thinking inside the box. They were trying to improve the way they are working. However, a new kid on the block comes and he is going to introduce things because on the digital platforms, there are total radically different ways you can do the same thing to give the experience. So whole intention of this particular slide for me to show you, just give a thought. There are many traditional business you can totally disrupt, right? Because the way people are being served by this traditional business could have been totally disrupted by digital means. Give a thought. And okay, now this is the important part. Okay, how can I be a successful? How can I find a successful product to be that digital entrepreneur? Interestingly, I think most of you may have heard about this. Heard about one of the leading universities in the world, Stanford, right? And Stanford D School, because Stanford Design School has done. They did a research on most of the successful innovative product, innovative company, and what they wrote it down, 5-step, very simplified 5-step process for that innovation to define how can they make a successful innovation. So they call that design thinking. So let me briefly introduce this design thinking subject here. So design thinking always talks about, I think there are two ways, right? Typically, inventions happens, they would figure it out some form of technology idea. They try to find an answer, they have their bias, and they try to push that to some sort of people. That's why I told you most of the inventions are ended up on the shelf. But what design thinking suggests for anyone, if you want to make an impact to the mankind, always find, get into the, as I told you, where the innovation happens at the periphery of the problem. Get into a place where you see a problem, and then you have to empathize from the shoes of the people who are having that challenge, who are having that issue. So important point number one for this to be very successful, it's to start with empathizing with the people who are having a problem, who are having a challenge. Then I think you can try to define, because we all have our own definitions of the problem. Okay, you define it. Next what? Now, based on the problem definition, you can ideate many solutions. You ideate many solutions, and then first let me go a single cycle. Then out of that many solutions, you picked one, and we try to prototype it. We try to create a prototype, and then we test with the sample set of people who are having the problem. And if we fail it, what we can do is either we can go back to optimize prototype, or we may be able to go and select a different idea how to solve it, or the issue may not be your problem with the ideation. It may be the definition of your problem, how you wrote down the problem, because for the problem only you found answers. Or sometimes we may not have properly redefined the problem simply because we haven't really empathized on exact reason why this particular, what is this exact problem, how we are going to solve it. So what I want to emphasize here is, if you don't empathize with the set of people who are having a problem, you won't be able to find the right answer which can make an impact, which can solve their problem. Solving their problem, it should happen in sustainable manner, something what they can spend, all these things. මම මේක ආයි පාරක් සිංහලෙනුත් කියන්න. මේ ගොඩක් කට්ටිය අපි වරද්ද ගන්න තැන තමයි මේ ඩිජිටල් ඉනෝවේෂන් කරන්න ගිහිල්ලා අපි ගොඩක් වෙලාවට මොකක් හරි අපි දැකපු මේ ටෙක් පීසස් කියන කූල් ටෙක් කියලා කූල් ටෙක් අයිටම් තියෙන අපි දැකලා හිතනවා මේක හරි කූල්, මේකෙන් ගොඩක් මොන හරි කරන්න පුළුවන් කියලා අපි ටෙක් එක අරන් යනවා. ඒ ටෙක් එක තමයි මේ උත්තරයක් අරන් ගිහිල්ලා මිනිස්සුන්ට බලෙන් ගහන්න යනවා. දැන් මම නිකන් කියන්නේ උදාහරණයක් විදිහට මේ අපි නිකන් ගමුකෝ මේ දවස්වල අපේ රටේ තියෙන ප්‍රශ්න මේ සෝෂල් ඔන්ටර්ප්‍රිනර්ෂිප් එක ගැන කියන එක. මේ අපේ ඩෙල්ටා මේ කියනවා වෛරස් කියනවා ගොඩක් අපේ දුප්පත් ළමයි ඉන්නවා මේ ඉගෙන ගන්න අධ්‍යාපනයේ ඇක්සස් එක නැහැ. ඒකට හේතුව වෙන්න පුළුවන් ඒගොල්ලන්ගේ ඩිජිටල් ඩිවයිස් එකක් නැහැ කියන එක කියමුකෝ. හරි, කනෙක්ටිවිටි නැහැ කියලා. මට තියෙන ප්‍රශ්නේ තමයි සමහර ගම්වල මේ කනෙක්ටිවිටි අපි උත්තරයට හිතාගෙන ඉන්නවා. දැන් මේකට උත්තරේ තමයි මේ තනිකර මේ ටීචර් කෙනෙක් ඉන්නවා. ඉන්න ටීචර් ක්ලාස්රූම් එකේ උගන්වපු විදියක් තියෙනවා. ඒ උගන්වපු විදියම කෙලිම ඩිජිටල් ප්ලැට්ෆෝම් එකකට කරනවා. මම හිතන්නේ මේක ගත්තොත් මේක සම්පූර්ණයෙන් වැරදි දෙයක්. මොකද අපි ක්ලාස්රූම් එකක උගන්වපු විදිහ ඒ වගේ විදිහ එහෙමම ඩිජිටල් ප්ලැට්ෆෝම් වල කරන්න යන්න බෑ. මම දැකලා තියෙනවා, අපි දැකලා තියෙනවා ඒ ගොඩක් සමහරලාට ටීචර්ස් නිකන් නෝට් එකකින් ඒ වගේ දේවල් කරන්න යන්න බෑ. මේ දේ කරද්දී අපි ඇත්තටම එම්පතයිස් කරන්න ඕනේ මොකද්ද ප්‍රශ්නේ කියලා. ඉතින් සමහර කට්ටිය මට ඒක විදිහකට ඒක කරන්න යද්දී ඒතර ප්‍රශ්නේ වෙනවා මේ ළමයිට ඩිවයිස් එකක් නැහැ. ඊට පස්සේ අපි ඩිවයිස් අරන් දෙන්න යනවා. ඊට පස්සේ කියන ඩිවයිස් එක ගත්තාම කනෙක්ටිවිටි නැහැ කියලා. ඊට පස්සේ කනෙක්ටිවිටි වලට මේක ලොකු කතා යන අතරේ හැබැයි අපි ඇත්තටම බැලුවොත් අපේ මේ ඩිජිටල් කොන්ටෙන්ට් এডুকেෂන් මේක ගත්තොත් මේ ප්‍රශ්නේ දිහා අපි මේකට වඩා වෙන විදිහකට එම්පතයිස් කරලා බැලුවොත් සමහර විට අපිට මේක සස්ටේන් කරන්න පුළුවන්. මම අහන්න ප්‍රශ්නේ අපි හිතුවොත් මේ ළමයිගේ මේ ඩිජිටල් කන්ටෙන්ට් ගන්න ඩිජිටල් ඩිවයිඩ් එක නැති කරන්න මේ දේ කරන්න කියලා හැම ළමයාටම ඩිවයිස් එකක් දෙන්න ඕනේ. හරි, ඩිවයිස් එකක් ඕනේ කියමු. ඊට පස්සේ හැමෝටම කනෙක්ටිවිටි හදන පැත්තෙන් ගියොත් එම් සමහරක් මේ ප්‍රශ්න ඉවර කරන්න බැරි වෙයි. අපේ මේ ඇයි හැම ළමයාටම ඩිවයිස් එකක් ඕනේ කියලා කියන්නේ මේ අපේ මොකද කොවිඩ් වගේ මේවා තියෙන මේ කොළඹ වගේ අපි ක්‍රෑම්ප් ඇති වල තියෙන ප්‍රශ්නයක්. හැබැයි ගම්වල මේ ලීස් ඩෙන්ස් ඒරියා වල සමහරට මේ කොවිඩ් මෙහෙම ස්ප්‍රෙඩ් වෙන ප්‍රශ්නේ මේ ළමයි ටික කොහොමදත් ගමේ එකට සෙල්ලම් කර කර ඉන්නේ. ටීචර්ස් ඉන්නේ ගමේ. අපි ඒ ළමයිට ඒ කියන්නේ දැන් එතකොට මම කියන්නේ ඒ ළමයිට කවුරු හරි හපොත් මේ ඩිජිටල් මේකේ තියෙන කන්ටෙන්ට් এডুকেෂන් දෙන්න ඕනේ නැති කියලා හරි වැරදි. මම කියන්නේ ඒ වගේ ගමක් අරගෙන අපි කරන්න තියෙන හැම ළමයාටම ටැබ් එකක් හරි ඩිවයිස් එකක් දෙන්න යන එක නෙමෙයි. මොකද්ද ඔක දුන්නාම වෙන්නේ? තියුණෙන් පස්සේ හරියට මොනිටර් වෙලා කන්ටෙන්ට් මේවා කරලා ඔය ටික ළමයා කන්සියුම් කරන්නේ නැති වුණොත් ඔය ළමයාගේ ඔය ඩේටා ටිකයි ඔය ටැබ් එකයි එක්ක ළමයා ගිහිල්ලා මොනවද කොහෙද ඉතුරු වෙන්නේ අපි දන්නනේ අද තියෙන ලොකු ප්‍රශ්නේ ෆෝනෝග්‍රැෆි වලට ගිහිල්ලා ඔය ළමයි ටික අන්තිමට ඔය ඩිවයිස් එක අරන් අපි හොඳ කරන්න ගියේ අනිත් පැත්තකට මම මෙහෙම හැවුවොත් ඔය ළමයි ටිකට මේ අපිට ඒ කියන්නේ ඒතකොට කවුරු හරි අහන්න එහෙනම් අපේ ගම් වල ඉන්න ළමයි ටිකට මේ ඩිජිටල් මේ වගේ තියෙන රෙවොලූෂන් එකේ තියෙන এডুকেෂන් දෙන්න හොඳ නැහැ. මං කියන්නේ දෙන්න ඕනේ. දෙන ක්‍රම කොහොමද? මම ඒක කියන්නේ මේක මේ හරිම උත්තරේ නේ මේක හිතලා බලන්න ඕනේ. මම නිකන් හිතනවා එම්පතයිස් කරලා. ඒ වගේ කමක් කරගත්තොත් එහෙනම් අපි නිකන් උදාහරණයකට මම මේක සෝෂල් ඔන්ටර්ප්‍රිනර්ෂිප් එකක් විදිහට හිතන්න. නිකන් උදාහරණයක්. අපි මේ එක්සැම්පල් හයිපොතෙටික් එකක් විදිහට මම කතා කරන්නේ. අපි හිතමු ගමක් තියෙනවා. ඒකේ තියෙන්නේ පහේ පන්තිය වෙනකම් පන්ති ඉස්කෝලේ ගමේ තියෙන පන්ති 5ක් 6ක්. ඇත්තටම ගිහින් බැලුවොත් මේ ගමේ තියෙන ප්‍රශ්නේ ඉන්නේ ටීචර් එක්කෙනයි දෙන්නේ. ටීචර්යි ළමයි අතර හම්බෙන්න බැරි කමක් නැහැ. ළමයි ටික කොහොමද ගමේ මිනිස්සු එකට ඉන්නවා. දැන් ඉස්කෝල වහලා තියෙනවා. ඔෆිෂියලි වහන්නේ ඒක වෙන්න පුළුවන්. අන්ඔෆිෂියලි අයි ඔය ළමයි ටික ඔතෙන්ට තියලා අපිට ඔය පන්ති 5ට ටිකක් ලොකු අඟල් 32 විතර ටීවී 5ක් හයි කරලා ඔය ටීවී 5ට අපිට මේ රාස්බෙරි පයි හරි මොන හරි ඩොලර් 30ක 40ක විතර ඩොලර් 20ක 25ක විතර තියෙන ලිනක්ස් රන් කරන්න පුළුවන් පොඩි කම්පියුටර් එකක් හයි කරලා ඒක හරහා අපි ඒකට නෙට්වර්කින් මේවා දීලා අපිට ඒකට YouTube දීලා YouTube එක රෙස්ට්‍රික්ට් කරලා ඒ ප්‍රොවයිඩර්ස් එක්ක එකතු කරලා යන්න පුළුවන් මේ රෙස්ට්‍රික්ටඩ් මෝඩ් එකේ විතරයි කියලා. YouTube එක ඇතුළෙම කොච්චර channel ටික එනවා දැන් බලන්න දැන් හොඳම ටීචර්ස් ටික උගන්වන කන්ටෙන්ට් තියෙනවා YouTube එකේ. ඉතින් ඒ වගේ දේවල් අපිට මේ ළමයින්ට ඒක හරහා දෙන්න පුළුවන්. ඊට පස්සේ ටීචර්ත් එතෙන්ට ඇවිල්ලා ළමයි එක්ක දැන් අර නෝට් එක කියලා දෙනනේ අර හොඳම ටීචර් සමහරලාට එයා හොඳ කෙනෙක් වෙන්න පුළුවන් අර ලෙක්චර් එකක් විදියට මේ දේ ලස්සන විදියට ෂෙයා කරන්න. අර ඉන්න ටීචර්ට මොකද ටීචින් කියන එකේ ඊට එහා දෙයක් තියෙන ටීචර්ට පුළුවන් ඒ කියන ඇක්ටිවිටි ක්‍රියේටිව් දේවල් ළමයිත් එක්ක කරන්න. මම කියන්නේ බලන්න මෙතන අපි ඩිසයින් තින්කින් දැම්මොත් හරි අපි ඇත්තටම එතකොට යනවා එම්පතයිස් කරන මොකක්ද ප්‍රශ්නේ මේ ළමයින්ට අද access to education more better content ඒ ටික ගන්න මට මෙතන එක්සැම්පල් එක ගේන්න ඕනේ මේ අපි ගොඩක් වෙලාවට හිතාගෙන ඉන්නවා අපිට හම්බෙන මොකක් හරි ආන්සර් එකක් තමයි මේකේ හරි දෙය කියලා. මම කියන්නේ ආන්සර් එකට යන්න එපා. ගිහිල්ලා එම්පතයිස් කරලා බලන්න මොකක්ද ඇත්තටම ප්‍රශ්නේ කියලා. ප්‍රශ්නේ education. මේ ළමයි ක්‍රියේටිවිටි වෙන්න ඕනේ. අලුත් මේ දැන් දුවන විදිහෙන් ප්‍රශ්න අන්න එතනට ගිහලා රූට් කෝස් එකටම ගිහිල්ලා එම්ෆසයිස් කරලා ඒ ප්‍රශ්නේ better redefine කරලා ඒ ප්‍රශ්නෙට කියන possible answers මම කිව්ව එක D answer එකක් නෙමෙයි මම කියන්නේ මේ වගේ answers හොයලා බලලා ඒක පොඩි එක්ස්පෙරිමන්ට් එකක් කරලා හරියන දේ කරන්න ඕනේ. ඉතින් ඔයගලන්ට තේරෙන නේද මේ design thinking කියලා කියන්නේ මොකක්ද කියලා. So with that note, let me go to take this example. I think those who are interested, just Google this TED Talk, Airbnb CEO, founder, Airbnb founders TED Talk. If you want to add another additional keyword, it is talk about Airbnb design for trust. We discussed, right? Airbnb is the biggest room booking business now. Now, Airbnb never thought to just to replace another room booking engine. Now, there are plenty of other room booking engines. Airbnb really empathized getting into the visitor's point of view and the homeowner's point of view and see what are the missing elements for them to use someone's spare room with a total stranger. They identify the biggest problem because if, let's say, I would prefer to go and stay in a home which I know, if that party I know, and that party also may be happy to have me because they trust me, simply because that's their home environment. How can we recreate the same thing on a digital space with total unknown household owners, with strangers, strange travelers? So they identify the important aspect is to challenge the stranger danger bias. they call it, and how to design the entire system for trust. And they identified hospitality is deeply a held cultural practices. A lot of these things, they really solve that. මේ Airbnb කියන්නේ room booking එක පෙන්වන තැන මෙයාගේ මෙතන room එක තියෙන මේක නෙමෙයි. ඒක ගොඩක් වෙලාවට අර ඒක match කරන්න ඒගොල්ලෝ travelers ලගේ behaviors, ඒගොල්ලන්ගේ preferences, ගෙවල් අයගේ තියෙන behaviors, cultural දේවල් එකට map කරලා ඒ trust එක build වෙන විදිහට ඊට පස්සේ ratings දාන විදිහ, ඒ ගැන comment යන විදිහ ඒගොල්ලෝ ground up එක හිතුවා. ඒක හිතපු හින්දා තමයි Airbnb success උනේ. I encourage you to listen to this TED talk by Joe Gebbia, the co-founder of Airbnb. The topic is design for trust. There you can understand what's the philosophy, thinking paradigm of Airbnb owner when he co-founded, when they created Airbnb.
Okay. Excuse me,
cool.
Sir.
Yeah.
Sir, so we have some questions.
Please.
Yeah. So, sir, to ask the questions, so to conduct the Q&A session, I'd like to invite Harin Udugama.
Yes, Mr. Sankalpa Kambarige, we received questions from our audience via WhatsApp and Zoom chat. I would like to direct those questions to you. The first question which I obtained is, which digital technologies should a modern entrepreneur invest in?
Good question. So which digital technologies a modern entrepreneur should invest in? I think interesting part is technologies are changing so rapidly. So that's what I told you, he or she, because this skill set part, this particular slide itself talks about it. So I think, as I told you, entrepreneurs should have a good digital and tech savviness, no doubt, right? And then he need to figure it out, what's the problem he's facing. So entrepreneur, if I told you, entrepreneur is not about selection of cool gadgets, right? Then he need to, once he figure it out, what's his problem, then I think he should be able to go back to identify what are the technologies he want to further investigate and invest. So I don't think there is a hard and fast rule for you to learn everything by yourself. But if you have a better understanding about your problem you're trying to solve and have some form of a gut feeler, okay, this manner I can do, I think once you have that two things, you can easily find your answer. So Harindu, I think to give me an answer, there is no single answer. It all depends on what sort of problem. For example, if someone wants to do improve the efficiency of agro thing, I would say he or she may have to look into IoT, right? If someone wants to go into food processing sort of things, I think I'm talking about we all think conventional always creation of a app or a website. I think this is much beyond that, because app for website is only just the interface. For you to do app for website, I think there are plenty of tools for that purpose. Then if once you collect those things, when you have data, then you have to figure it out how to do data science and all these things. Now there are different options. So one, as you said, very simplified, I would say what are the digital tech and tech areas where you all need to look into. We call that SMACI, right? SMACI is social. So you need to make sure you have a good idea about social media. Mobile, so mobile technology, because mobile, both Apple and Android providing lots and tons of mobile APIs and different features on the phone. You may be able to use them a lot to create different things, not only just data tikai screen එකයි විතරක් නෙමෙයි, තව ගොඩක් දේවල් තියෙන accelerometer, GPS data, ඔය ගොඩක් දේවල් තියෙනවා, API විදිහටම දීලා තියෙනවා ඔය කට්ටිය. That is mobile. A is analytics. When you have data information, you need to do analytics. C is cloud. All these things, you don't have to have your own infrastructure to host all these things. There are cloud things which is quite good to start. And as you progress, you may be able to further optimize on your cloud. This cloud is something helps you to quickly build apps and tests and play with your problem rather than focusing on the technology and Internet of Things and uh, security. So those are the high level areas. So Harindu, now do you have any idea about what sort of specific question they are having? But what just now I told you about the high level typical technology area. Someone who want to go for a digital innovation, you need to get a little bit of idea. So I think then you get an idea. Once you lock down a problem, then you can go deep into the technology and find a carve out the answer. Now, Harindu, මේ question එක ආවෙම අපේ තියෙන mindset එක digital innovation කරන්න digital දැනගන්න ඕනේ කියලා. හරිදු මං කියන්නේ digital දැනගන්න ඕනේ නෑ innovation කරන්න. මිනිස්සුන්ගේ ප්‍රශ්නෙට යන්න ප්‍රශ්නේ මොකක්ද කියලා ලියාගෙන ඊට පස්සේ මම කියන්න කොහොමද කරන්න ඕනේ වැඩි from this same thing. I think let's say one of you I think in a better position to define the problem. Now you know the domain. You are getting partnered with someone who knows the technology, guys. That's how we start to do business. So everything we don't have to do alone. That's the problem. Then the guy who knows the subject technology, he may not be the one who knows the problem. Now, one who knows the problem, one who can emphasize, he is the leader. And the guy who knows technology can follow and support him. මේ ඒක තමයි මෙන්න මේ පින්තූරේ ඔයාලට පෙන්වන්නේ මම මේ දාලා තියෙන ස්කිල් සෙට් රික්වයර්මන්ට් එක කියලා ඔය ප්‍රශ්නයක් ගහද්දි දැන් මේක තනියෙන් කරන්න පුළුවන් එකක් නේ කරන්න ඕනේ මේක ඒක තමයි අර හෙටරොජීනියස් කට්ටිය එකතු වෙලා ඒ කියන්නේ මේ ඉංජිනේර්ලා දෙන්නෙක්ම එකතු වෙලාම ඩිජිටල් කම්පැනි හදනවා කියන කතාව ඒක බොරු කතාවක්. මේ ඕගොල්ලෝ අර අතේ ඇඟිලි පහ වෙනස් නේද? අපේ අතේ ඇඟිලි පහ වෙනස්. මේ ඇඟිලි පහම එක වගේ වුණොත් අපිට කිසියක් අල්ලන්න බෑ. ඒ වගේ මේ ඩිජිටල් ඉනෝවේෂන් ගේම් එකේදී ඔයගොල්ලෝ එම්පතයිස් කරන්න ගත්තම ඔයගොල්ලෝ මේකට උත්තරේ හොයන්න ඔයගොල්ලෝ වගේ ඉන්න තව මේ complement වෙන කට්ටිය. Not the one exactly like you. We always like to work with people who are exactly like us. But yes, we need to have some of them as backup and support. But success happens with people who are different to us working together. Assuming, right? Assume there is a food tech. So guys who know agri and food need to work with set of guys who know to IoT and digital things. And with another guy who have a good ability to have a better understanding about business. These three people together can make a big difference. Now, are they same? No, they are like different five fingers having a common objective. මෙන්න මේ මේකේ තියලා තියෙනනේ මේ බෝල ටිකක් ඇඳලා මම කතා කරනවානේ මේකේ මේ seek sense share කියලා. So this is all about the skills we need to have. So you need to work together, you need to seek information, you need to sense, and you need to share. When you are doing that, there are two things you do there. One is you are collaborating together, and the same time you cooperate. Do you know what's the difference between collaboration and cooperation? Collaboration කියන්නේ අපි ඔක්කොටම එක common objective එකක් කියලා ඒකට එකට වැඩ කරනවා. හරි. එතකොට ගත්තොත් අපි ටික හිතමු එකතල යාළුවෝ දෙන්නෙක් එකතු වෙලා අපි වැඩක් කරනවා මේ මොකක් හරි product එකක් හදන්න ඒක collaboration. Cooperation එකක් කියන්නේ අපි හිතමු දැන් ඩෙන්ගු මේ එහෙම නැත්නම් COVID මේක COVID දැන් ව්‍යාප්ත වෙන වෙලාවේ අපිට එළියට යන්න ඕනේ. හැබැයි අපි කෝපරේට් කරනවා නේද කට්ටියට හෙල්ත් සෙක්ටර් එකට එළියට යන්න නැතුව ෆේස් මාස්ක් දාගෙන උත් අන්න ඒක කෝපරේට්. කියන්නේ අපිට ඒක කොමන් ගෝල් එකම නොවුනට අපි ඒකට සපෝට් කරනවා. So in this journey you need to figure it out set of people who can collaborate and set of people who with whom you can cooperate. So corporate people I think both are very important set of skills. Both very important set of ways of engagement. How you do that? Through sense, seek and share. You need to share a lot. අර මේ entrepreneur කියලා තනියෙන් තියාගෙන මේක කරන්න යන්න බෑ. මේක ගොඩක් වෙලාට මේ collaboration එකක් එක්ක කරන්න ඕනේ. So let me quickly go through this few sets. Now, first thing we talk about digital and tech savviness and understanding of how they work. So I talked about understanding. I never asked you to go into deep. Once you have an understanding, you can find who knows to run them, operate them. You can find a person who knows them deep. But that guy is a techie. He may not know how to solve. He doesn't have any skill at all to empathize on the problem. With empathize කරන එක තමයි important. Then foresee. Foresee is see through the clutter. කටියට නොපෙනෙන දේවල් බලන්න පුළුවන් වෙනවා. And ability to handle ambiguity. Just check whether you have maybe sure නැති දේවල් අස්සේ ගමන ඉස්සරහට යන්න පුළුවන් වෙනවා. And then I told you, we have to get these different people together and we need to co-invent with the customer. So all these happens with your communication ability. And there's something called the conventional business analysis and digital business analysis. I think it's good to learn about new tools, about this digital economy, how the business operates. And then digital product management, digital project management, because digital project management are fairly different compared to the conventional brick and mortar sort of thing. And digital marketing and social media sort of thing. Harinder, is there any other questions, Harinder?
Yes, sir. There is a question that says, how do you know whether the digital transformation is working at your organization?
How do you know whether digital transformation is working at your organization? Yes, it's interesting. The digital transformation at your organization, if it is work, always there should be a progress in your business. If you don't see a progress in your business, I think it shows, even though you have tried to go for digitization and digitalization, it has not made a positive transformation. Did I answer that question very simply?
Yes, sir. Thank you very much. That's all the questions that we received.
Right.
You can continue with your presentation, sir. Thank you.
I think it's almost 5 o'clock. Let me quickly take a couple of 5 more minutes and finish this wrap up, right? I think this is the important part. Yeah, important part. So everyone just 6 more minutes. By 10 minutes past 5 o'clock, let's finish. Important aspect. Now, I think most of you may be 15, some may be 15, some may be between 15 to 18, 18 to 21, 21 to 25. I think we may not have anyone more than that, but this is what I'm talking is applicable to everyone. I think this is some form of a formula, personal value formula. We figure it out with very progressive digital transformers and organization. I would call them in our language, because I was always part of these digital companies doing new products for third parties. So we call that people who lead that technopreneurs. So they are thinking on behalf of our customers' business, putting technology there and try to figure it out that answer. අර මං කිව්ව මේ Stanford design things අපි කරා අපි work අපි හැමතිස්සෙම මං කරපු එක example එක whole department store එක කරන එකේදී අපි ඒගොල්ලන්ගේ ඉන්න business එකේ ඉන්න managers ඒගොල්ලන් customers අතර තියෙන ප්‍රශ්නයකට විසඳන්න අපි එකට වැඩ කරා අපි ඒගොල්ලොත් එක්ක එකට empathize කරා customer එක. ඊට පස්සේ ප්‍රශ්න ලිව්වා. ප්‍රශ්න ලියලා ඉවරලා අපි ඒකට තියෙන alternative answers ටික ලිව්වා. ඊට පස්සේ answers වලින් එකක් අරගෙන prototype කරලා අපි ඒ prototype එක ඒගොල්ලන්ගේ senior management එකට පෙන්නලා ඒගොල්ලන්ගේ අවසර අරගෙන අපි ඒක small scale single couple of store pilot කරලා ඒවයි success වෙනවා. fail වෙනවා. ඒක කරද්දී ඇද්දි ඒ වගේ stage 50ක් විතර කරන එකයි success වෙන්නේ. ඒක fail වෙනකොට අපි ආපස්සට යනවා අර මං කිව්ව cycle එකදී කොහෙද අපි වැරදුනේ? අපි empathize කරා වැරදුනාද ප්‍රශ්නේ? define කරා වැරදුනාද? අපි ප්‍රශ්නෙට ගත්ත alternative answers වල අපි pick කරේ වැරදි එකක්ද? අපි ඒක implement කරපු විදිය වැරද්ද prototype එකට අපි test කරා වැරදුනාද? ඒ ඔක්කොම අපි check කරනවා. හරි. දැන් මේ ටික කරන්න ඕනේ කවුරු හරි මේ අර technopreneurs ටිකක් නේ. හරි. මම මේ කියනවා අර technology savvy entrepreneurs ටිකක් නේ. අපි දැන් අපි entrepreneur කියලා කියන්නේ සාමාන්‍යයෙන් අපිටම කම්පනියක් තියෙන අපේම IT එකකින් දැන් අපිට IT එක නොතිබ්බට මේ මම කියවනේ කම්පනීස් හොයන්නේ ආයත කියන මේගොල්ලෝ entrepreneurs කියලා. කම්පනි අලුත් දේවල් කරන මොකද කම්පනි IT එක තියෙන ෂෙයා පබ්ලික් කම්පනි ෂෙයා හෝල්ඩින් එකට. නමුත් ඒගොල්ලෝ එක්ස්පෙක්ට් කරන මේ එම්ප්ලොයිස් ටික මේ දේවල් ට්‍රාන්ස්ෆෝම් කරයි කියලා. මේගොල්ලන්ට ඕනේ කරන ස්කිල් සෙට් එක. පළවෙනි එක continuous learning. ඕගොල්ලන් ඉගෙන ගන්න එක ජීවිත කාලේ පුරා කරන්න. Second one is you need to be always reflect කරනවා කියන්නේ ඔයාගේ experience එක පැත්තට හැරලා බලන්න ඕනේ. මොකද ඔයා කොච්චර දෙයක් එළියේ තියෙන knowledge ගත්තත් ඔයාගේ experience එකත් එක්ක ඒක carefully බැලුවේ නැත්නම් ඔයාට අර හිතේ මේ wisdom එක කියන දෙයක් ඇති වෙන්නේ නැහැ. ඒක කොහොමද තව යාළුවොත් එක්ක collective wisdom මේ wisdom එක තමයි අපි ප්‍රයෝජනයට ගන්න challenge the convention. අපේ හිතේ ඇති වෙනවා දැන් මොන හරි මෙන්න මේ මිනිස්සුන්ට ඔය අලුතෙන් ඉගෙන ගන්න දේ ඔය රිෆ්ලෙක්ෂන් එකතු කරලා තමයි ඔය දේවල් පාවිච්චි කරලා අපිට මිනිස්සු ගැන එම්පතයිස් කරන්න. අපිට එතකොට ඒගොල්ලන් කියන ප්‍රශ්න කියන එක තේරෙනවා. ඒ ප්‍රශ්නේ තමයි අපි ඒ ප්‍රශ්නේ අපේ හිතට ආවම ඒක ලෝකේ කියන එක අපේ ඇතුළේ හැදෙන ඒ හිතට ආපු දේ අපි චැලෙන්ජ් කරන්න ඕනේ. ඒක තමයි entrepreneurගේ number 1. අපි දැන් අපිට චැලෙන්ජ් කරලා අපි ඒක කම්ෆර්ටබල් අපි ඒක අනිත් අයට අපේ ඒ ප්‍රශ්න තියෙන අයත් එක්ක කමියුනිකේට් කරන්න ඕනේ. අපේ පාර්ට්නර්ස් අත් එක්ක කමියුනිකේට් කරන්න. ඒ කමියුනිකේට් කරන ආර්ට් එක තමයි be candid කියන්නේ. ඊට පස්සේ මේ අපි ටිකට එකතු වෙලා මේක දැන් කවුරුත් ලියන්නේ නැහැ නේ මම ලොක්කා ඔයා ලොක්කා කියලා එහෙම නෙමෙයි. දැන් මේකේ තියෙනවා මේ untitled leadership එකක් දෙන්න ඕනේ. ඉස්සරහට ඇවිල්ලා මේ දේ කරලා කරගෙන යනකොට අන්තික මේ leadership එක මාරු වෙනවා. මේ lead without title කියන ගොඩක් කට්ටිය අපිට නෑ ඒ අර අඩියක් ඉස්සරහට තියලා මම මේකේ මේ මොකද ලීඩර් කෙනෙක් ඊට වඩා මහන්සියක් ගන්න එපා අනික් අය එන්නේ නැති තැන කට්ටිය වාගෙත් එක්ක යන්න ගන්න ඒ ලීඩ් විතවුට් ටයිටල් කියන කැරක්ටරිස්ටික් එක ඕනේ ඊට පස්සේ මේ පටන් ගත්ත දේ කියන්න ගත්ත දේ කරන්න ඕනේ walk the talk මේ දේවල් කරද්දී අපිට මේ අපේ ගෙවල් වලින් හරි අපිට වෙන වැඩක් කරන්න නැතුව අපේ ටයිම් එක දානවා සල්ලි දානවා මේ දේවල් හරියට මැනේජ් කරන්න ඕනේ ඊට පස්සේ මේ දේවල් කට්ටිය එකට එකතු වෙලා කරනකොට කස්ටමර් ඉඳ දැන් ලෝකේ කතා කරන්නේ කෝ ඉනෝවේෂන් කෝ වැලියු ක්‍රියේෂන් මේ කට්ටිය එකට එකතු වෙලා කරන්න ඕනේ මේ ගමනේ මේ ට්‍රස්ට් එක හරි වැදගත් ට්‍රස්ට් එකේ මූල තමයි ඉන්ටිග්‍රිටි ඉතින් ඔයගොල්ලෝ බලන්න ඔයගොල්ලන්ට ලොකු ගමනක් යන්න ඕන මේ දේවල් කියනවාද කියලා ඔයගොල්ලන්ගේ පර්සනැලිටි එක ඇතුලේ විශේෂයෙන් මේ act with integrity ගොඩක් entrepreneurs අතේ හදලා හොඳට පටන් අරගෙන පොඩ්ඩ කාලේ ඉන්ටිග්‍රිටි නැති මිනිස්සු ටික දවසක් යනකොට හැලෙනවා. මොකද ඕගොල්ලන් අපි දන්නවා අපේ වටේ ට්‍රස්ට් රෙසර්වොයර් එකක් හැදෙන්නේ. මේ ට්‍රස්ට් රෙසර්වොයර් එක හැදෙන්න අපේ ඉනර්ට් එක තමයි ඉන්ටිග්‍රිටි. ඉතින් මම කියනවා මේ ෂෝට්කට් ගන්න එපා. මේ ඉන්ටිග්‍රිටි වැලියුස් වලට යන්න මේවත් එක්ක කරොත් ඕගොල්ලන්ට හොඳ දෙයක් මේ කරන්න පුළුවන්. මම ඊට වඩා ගොඩක් ඩීටේල් යන්නේ නැහැ. මම ඔයගොල්ලන්ට මම තව 5 10ට නවත්තනවා කියලා මේ ඔය ටික ගැන තමයි මම කතා කරේ මම ඔයගොල්ලොත් එක්ක අද ඩීටේල් ගියේ නැහැ මේ ටෙක්නොලොජි එක ගන්නවත් මේ දේ කරන්න කියලාවත් මොකද හේතුව උනේ ඒක වාස්ට් ඒරියා එකක් ඒක පැබාගකින් අර ටෙක් එක ගන්න මේ ටෙක් එක ගන්න කියන්න බෑ මොකද ඔයා ටෙක් එක බැලුවා කියලා ඔන්ටර්ප්‍රෙනියර් කෙනෙක් වෙන්නේ ඔන්ටර්ප්‍රෙනියර් කියන්නේ ඔයාගේ ඇඟ ඇතුළේ තියෙන වැලියු ටිකක් වෙනස් වෙන ගමන මම ඒකයි මුළු ගමන පුරාට ඔයගොල්ලන්ට කතා කරේ මේ මොන වැලියුස් ටික චේන්ජ් කරගත්තොත් කොයි විදිය බිහේවියර් එකක් ඔයගොල්ලෝ හදාගත්තොත් ඕගොල්ලන්ට අර නොලෙජ් එක අර ෆ්‍රේම්වර්ක් ඒ දේවල් ගන්න පුළුවන්. හැබැයි ඒ ෆ්‍රේම්වර්ක් ඉගෙන ගන්න පුළුවන්. හැබැයි මේ ඕගොල්ලන්ගේ ඇඟ ඇතුලේ තියෙන DNA එක චේන්ජ් වුනේ නැත්නම් ඕගොල්ලන්ට ඔය කියන ඩිජිටල් ඔන්ටර්ප්‍රෙනියර් කෙනෙක් වෙන්න බෑ. එසඳු හරින් තව ප්‍රශ්න තියෙනවද? එසඳු හරි. මම හිතන්නේ මම මෙතනින් එහාට තව ඩීටේල් කතා කරන්න යන්නේ නැහැ. මගේ ස්ලයිඩ්ස් වල තියෙන ටික. හැබැයි මට එසෙන්ස් එක ඕක තමයි ඕගලන්ට කියන්න ඕනේ. මේ ඕගොල්ලෝ ඩිජිටල් ඔන්ටර්ප්‍රෙනියර් කෙනෙක් වෙන්න ඩිජිටල් ඉනෝවේෂන් එකක් කරද්දි මට කියන්න ඕනේ ඉනෝවේෂන් එකක් කියන්නේ මිනිස්සුත් එක්ක තියෙන දෙයක්. හරි. ඩිජිටල් ටෙක් සැවිනස් එක කියන්නේ හැමදේම කරන්න යන්නේ. හොඳට දන්න තව යාළුවෝ එකට එකතු කරගන්න. කට්ටියත් එක්ක මේ ප්‍රශ්නෙට එම්පතයිස් කරලා හරි උත්තරයක් හොයන්න. මේ ගමන යනකොට අර පටන් ගත්ත ගමන අතාරින්න එපා. යන්න. වරදින්න පුළුවන්. ෆේල් එකෙන් ඉක්මනට ඉගෙනගෙන ආයි පාරක් ෆීඩ්බැක් ලූප් එකට දාලා තව දේවල් කරන්න. අනිත් එක මේ ඩිජිටල් ඔන්ටර්ප්‍රෙනියර් ස්කිල් එක ඔයා හැමතිස්සෙම ඔයාගේ බිස්නස් එකක් විතර නේ අනිත් අයගේ බිස්නස් වලත් ඔය දේ තියෙනවා. ලෝකෙ වැඩිමම පේ කරන්නේ ඔය digital entrepreneur skills තියෙන කට්ටියව company වලට hire කරන්න. හරි. ඒක තමයි මේ වෙලාවේ ලෝකේ තියෙන වැඩිම සල්ලි pay කරන. අනිත් එක මේ දැන් trend එකත් එක්ක working from anywhere මේකත් එක්ක මේ ලෝක වටේ තියෙන company ඕගොල්ලන් හොයාගෙන මම ඔයාලට උදාහරණයක් කියන්නම්. මේ මම දැන් වැඩ කරන්නේ මේ Nagaro කියන company. I'm working for a company called Nagaro, which is a 1.2 billion euro valued company listed at the Frankfurt Stock Exchange. That company is purely, it is having 10,000 plus engineers in 26 countries. Their whole model is to work with many global top brands for this digital innovation. So some of our customers are BMW, Audi, Mercedes, Lufthansa, Siemens, you name, almost everybody is there among Nagaro's brands, customer brands. What we do is we get the finest set of people and we put them as that particular core value creation, core problem solving team CEOs. So Nagaro is a company which doesn't have CEO on top, that conventional traditional chief executive officer, which is having more than 500 periphery CEOs. We call the project CEOs. They are the ones who co-create that digital transformation for our customers. So we do that. So we want this sort of people. So that's what I told you is either you, even whether you do your own business or if you are going to be part of any organization, they are looking for this digital innovative skill set. It's a huge, massive demanded area. Cool. Harin and Isandu, any other questions?
No, sir. That's all the questions we have for today.
Thank you, Dr. Sankalpa Gammarige. I sincerely apologize, sir, for any inconvenience caused. It seems that time is not on our side. So I thank you again, sir, for clearly explaining the matter. It's important to understand the technology and to have the know-how to produce amazing innovations to benefit the world as a whole. All right. It's not about selling. It's about creating value for your audience. Jerry Aloka. We may create a product, know how to sell it, and make a profit. But what is it for without providing value and helping humanity? After all, business was formed to help transfer value. Money is a quantification of value. So in the end, it's all about what it's worth for another individual. Hence, we should know how to create a business that would benefit the masses. In addition, we must know how to maintain good social interactions with our customers. To clarify all the doubts about the matter of business values and social entrepreneurship, I'd like to invite Ms. Bri Balthazar, a researcher, social entrepreneur, media professional, and a helping hand to give voice and find solutions to social and environmental issues.
Hi, Vinitha. Thank you very much for that kind introduction. I'm just going to share my screen because I do have a presentation and I will run through a few things. My camera quality is really bad, guys. I apologize in advance for how the very low pixels on my laptop. But let me just share my screen now so that I can hold on just a second. Please bear with me. So this is visible to everyone?
Yes, Ms.
Yes, okay. So as I said, I mean, the introduction was, I think, kind of encapsulated all the different kinds of things that I do. My name is Rai Balthazar. I am a social entrepreneur amongst a few other things that I do. But this has been a really wonderful journey. So what I'm sharing today really is something that comes very much from the heart. And, you know, I'm always a little apprehensive to come in on these kinds of discussions because they are so wonderfully kind of, there's so much knowledge on kind of the larger scope of business. And my, you know, my interjection to this is a very kind of different opinion. So I hope you'll bear with me. It may not be everyone's cup of tea, so I'm going to make that distinction and the disclaimer at the very beginning. But I'm very happy to be followed by Dr. Sankalp. Is Dr. Sankalp still here with us in the group? Has Dr. Sankalp left us? And the reason I'm in particular really happy to have followed Dr. Sankalp is because he talked a lot about this word empathy, sahakampanaya. It's a word that I use quite a lot in pretty much all the work that we do, and it's core and central to the kinds of things that we have been doing in the last so many years. So the fact that he spoke of empathy, I think, was a really interesting way for me to start up also talking to you about our journey through a business that I run, but also mostly through the kinds of values and in understanding what social entrepreneurship is and how it differs, pardon me, to entrepreneurship in general. So I'm just going to go through my slides here. Okay, so what is entrepreneurship, right? Like we're looking at what entrepreneurship, entrepreneurship in general means. So entrepreneurship is basically the ability and the readiness to develop, organize, and run a business enterprise along with any of its uncertainties in order to make profit. Now, this idea of profit is really central to the idea of running a business and to the idea of being an entrepreneur and running an entrepreneurship, right? So the most prominent example of entrepreneurship is the starting of a new business, right? So in economics, entrepreneurship is connected with things like land, labor, natural resources. In particular, I highlighted these because I want to be able to talk about them later. And the capital can generate profit, right? The entrepreneurial vision is defined by discovery and taking risks or risk taking. And it is indispensable, it's an indispensable part of a nation's capacity to succeed in an ever-changing and more competitive global marketplace. Okay, so that's quite easy. But then what is social entrepreneurship, right? So social entrepreneurship, in some sense, is very different to what we call business entrepreneurship. Because social entrepreneurship is about recognizing, so in entrepreneurship, you're looking at a market, right? You're trying to figure out what's not in the market, what can I make a business, how do I transform this idea I have, how do I take this risk, how do I use the resources around me, how do I put this all together and then make profit. I mean, profit is what you're focused on. But with social entrepreneurship, you're recognizing what we call a social problem, right? So you're looking at something in the society, in your community, in the country, in your neighborhood, whatever it is, and you're realizing, okay, so this needs to change. And you're trying to achieve social change. And the way in which you do it is by you employ entrepreneurial principles and processes and operations, right? But your goal is to change a problem or to find a way to fix a problem, right? So it's about making research to completely define a particular social problem and then organizing, creating, and managing social venture to attain a desired change, right? Now, what's also important, unlike with, say, business entrepreneurships, when you're looking for immediate turnarounds, break-even points, and then you're looking at kind of an immediate response to the problem, with social entrepreneurship, you're looking at eliminating a problem that either can happen during a small course of, like a small period of time, or it might be something that may take many years to resolve, maybe not even in your lifetime, but that is how we look at it. So as I'm just going to move into my next slide, so which is basically, sorry, I'm wondering if this bar is distracting you guys as much as it's distracting me. Okay, so what's the difference between social entrepreneurship and business entrepreneurship? So this is this small little grid that we have here, I think, just to talk about the differences, right? So if you look at business entrepreneurship, it's based on kind of more of an individualistic, individual kind of but an individual sense of like you're looking at the profit or the success or the progress of only that company. But with social entrepreneurship, you are looking at a more collective, a more holistic approach to a particular problem, right? So with business entrepreneurship, you're focused on the market, right? In social entrepreneurship, you're focused on finding a solution to a social issue. Then business entrepreneurship again, you're looking at performance, your performance measure. I think Dr. Sankalp was also, someone had asked a question about how do you measure, how do you know it's successful? With business entrepreneurship, it's profit, right? So it's easy to also ascertain. But with social entrepreneurship, because it's also a little more complex, because you're looking at, so your performance is social impact, right? So it's not as clear cut, not as black and white as profit, right? So with business entrepreneurship, you're looking at the needs of your customers, right? With social entrepreneurship, yes, you're looking at the needs of customers, but you're also looking at the needs of a wider society, right? So if you guys don't mind me going back 2 slides to this idea of basic idea of entrepreneurship, we're talking about land, labor, natural resources, right? And capital, right, to generate a profit. So if you're looking at land, labor, natural resources, I just want you guys to all take a minute to reflect on businesses that you know, right? It can be large corporations, it can be banks, it can be businesses owned by people you know, it can be, wherever you live, area in a business. The reason I want us to reflect on the current situation is because I think we have to understand how problematic our systems are now. I think if you're looking at the kind of social structures that we are in now, we are very driven by profit. We are in what we understand as a very capitalist ධනවාදී ක්‍රමයක් ඇතුළත තමයි අපි ජීවත් වෙන්නේ. So that is the system that we live in. And in this system, we don't, although we understand the value of land, we understand the value of capital, sometimes things like labor, natural resources කියන දේවල් වලට අපි එච්චර ලොකු බරක් දාන්නේ නැහැ. However we get those resources, all we are concerned about is getting those resources. We're not necessarily concerned about all the time how we source what we source, what our processes are throughout that whole chain link of making sure that we give a product or a service to a customer, because we're so focused on profit, right? So it's a shift in mentality. Entrepreneurship කියන වචනේ දෙකෙන් පාවිච්චි වුණාට as business and social entrepreneurship, they're two very, very different kinds of structures. So this is why I said when Dr. Sankalp was talking about empathy so much, I was very happy to hear it, because really the core of social entrepreneurship මට පේන විදිහට is සහකම්පනය කියන එක. Because it's empathy in firstly in understanding that මෙහෙම අපේ සමාජයේ මොකක් හරි ප්‍රශ්නයක් තියෙනවා, right? I'll share with you an example in a little while ඒක පොඩ්ඩක් පැහැදිලි කරන්න, but at the moment I just want to talk to you about this idea of empathy. I think in the world that we live in currently, there are so many social problems that there are problems of poverty, there are problems of lack of education, there are different kinds of other larger structural concerns that go on. There are, obviously we're in the middle of a pandemic, so that I think that has been showing us a larger gamut of things that have already been there in society, but then උළුප්පල අරගන්න පුළුවන් මට්ටමක් දැන් සමාජයේ හැදිලා තියෙනවා. So it's not that those problems weren't there before. ඒකෝනේ ඒ structure එක ඇතුළත I think looking at how I think everyone has experiences of how at the moment there are if there are certain things that are being sold at a higher price, certain things that are being sold at a black market rate, there are lots of problems going on with access to goods and services. So we I think have to understand that the current system that we live in is failing, maybe doing well for a small segment of our population, but overall like if you look at the larger group in society, it really is failing the majority, Because we're looking at access to resources, access to certain things only to a very small group. So that's why I think we need to recheck our own intentions. That's why I said at the beginning of this conversation, this kind of conversation that I'm having today may not be something that you will typically hear at like a business forum on entrepreneurship, on starting up your own businesses, because this is a very different take to it, right? And I don't mean to make it sound very special, but it's a very I think it's a session that hopefully will open up your eyes into understanding why we need to understand the kinds of businesses that we run. Some of you might want to run your own businesses. Some of you might want to have aspirations to do other jobs that maybe that may involve you, that may require you to work in other industries or bigger industries. It may not run your own business. But if you're one of those people in this group who's looking at maybe doing something of your own, then this conversation is especially for you. I am now 36. My background is in media, but my educational background was originally in design, and now it's in women and gender studies. So they're two very different things. So entrepreneurship is never something that I was taught, never something I learned, not something I pursued, not something that I meant to kind of happen. It happened quite organically for me, and I want to share that story with you guys also. A few years ago, I'm sure some of you would remember that there was this Meetota Mulla disaster which happened on Aurudu Day. And I had just had my first child, and I remember Facebook වල එහෙම post යනවා ඒ වෙලාවේ මීතර මුල කුණු කන්ද කඩන් වැටෙනකොට ඒ මිනිස්සු නැති වෙනකොට ඔයාගේ ගෙදර කෆි කොලේ වුණත් අන්නේ කන්දට එකතු වෙනවා. So you're like basically saying මේකට මමත් වග කියන්න ඕනේ කියන එක. ඒ වෙනකම් මම හිතන්නේ අපේ ගෙදර තියෙන කුණු ගැන මම ඒ දක්වා I had never thought of it. At best I would bring in my garbage, segregate it, එක එක තැන් වලට දාලා මේ dustbins ඕන දෙකට වගේ දාලා then compostable non-compostable කියලා. That was it. That was my idea of garbage segregation. හැබැයි since I was 11 years old, I've heard Dr. Ajanta coming to school. I don't know if you know of Dr. Ajanta, but Dr. Ajanta Pereira, she was a presidential candidate also at the last presidential election. I first heard the word Pratichakrikaranaya, recycling, from her when I was 11 years old. I was in grade 6. She came to auditorium and she said, Mama Tamai Kunu auntie, and she talked about garbage segregation, right? So ඒ කාලේ නම් මට මේ දැනුම තියෙනවා. හැබැයි අවුරුදු 20කින් පස්සේ තමයි මම ඒ දැනුම පාවිච්චි කරන්න ගන්නේ. Because up until then මම හිතන්නේ garbage කියන එක මගේ ප්‍රශ්නයක් නෙවෙයි. මම ගෙදර කුණු ටික එකතු කරනවා. කුණු ගේන CMC එකෙන් හරි දැන් මම ඉන්න දෙහිවල දිනගත සභාවෙන් එනවා. ඒගොල්ලෝ ලෝරියට දාගන්නවා. ඒගොල්ලෝ ගෙනියනවා. අන්න ඕක තමයි ප්‍රශ්නේ. But මීතට මුල්ලත් එක්ක මම දකිනවා අපේ රටේ තියෙන ලොකු ප්‍රශ්නයක් තමයි කුණු ප්‍රශ්නේ. right? ඒකට ඒක මම බිස්නස් එකක් හැටියට නෙමෙයි මුලින් කල්පනා කරන්නේ. මම මේක බිස්නස් ඔපචුනිටි එකක් මෙන්න මෙතන ප්‍රශ්නයක් තියෙනවා මේකෙන් සල්ලි හොයන්න ඕන කියන එක නෙමෙයි. මම මුලින් හිතනවා මම මොකද්ද කරන්න ඕනේ? මම මොකද්ද වෙනස් කරන්න ඕනේ? So it is very reflective. I think Dr. Sankalpa reflective walking the talk කියන එකක් කිව්වා and being reflective. So I had to be very reflective. මොකද්ද මෙතන වෙන්න ඕනේ කියලා. And a part of that reflectiveness for me meant that I had to very quickly understand why I was failing. අපේ ගෙදර මොන දේවල්ද මම කරන්නේ that is really not environmentally friendly. මොකද ඒ වෙනකන් I didn't have a lot of interest. ඒ කියන්නේ ඔය වචන පාවිච්චි කරන recycling, reusable, ඒවා trendy වචන කියලා දන්නවා. but ප්‍රායෝගිකව මම මේ කිසිම දෙයක් කරන්නේ නැහැ. ඉතින් මුලින් මම කල්පනා කරනවා ගෙදරට බඩු ගේනකොට මම ඒකට shop කරන්නේ සුපර් මාකට් වල. මම කඩෙන් බඩු ගේනකොට ඒ බඩු ගේනකොට what kind of ඒ කියන්නේ මම පාවිච්චි කරන්නේ පොලිතින් මාළුනේ. මම කරත් මගේ කාට් එක පිරෙන්නව පොලිතින්. මම හරි ප්‍රවුඩ්. මොකද එච්චරටම පොලිතින් බෑග් හිම ලොකුවට කරත් පිරෙන්න. යා shopping carts පිරෙන්න පොලිතින් මාළු පුරවගෙන එක ඇපල් ගෙඩියකට එක බෑග් එකයි මේ අනාසි ගෙඩියකට එක බෑග් එකයි අලතුරු තුන හතරක් ගත්තට ඒකට වෙන බෑග් එකයි. ඉතින් මොහොම පොලිතින් මාළු පුරවගෙන ගෙදර ඊට පස්සේ ඒවා හුඟක් දුරට ඉතින් අපි ආයේ reuse කරනවානේ. මොකද South Asia වල polythene bag කියන ඒවා හුඟක් දුරට reuse වෙනවා තමයි අඩුම තරම එක සැරයක්වත් singly. So ඕකත් එක්ක තමයි මම කල්පනා කරන්නේ නැහැ. මම හිතන්නේ ඔයිට වඩා හොඳ දෙයක් මට කරන්න පුළුවන්. මම පොඩි බෑග් එකක් හදනවා කියලා. ඒ බෑග් එක හදන එකෙන් තමයි මගේ ජීවිතේ මම හිතන්නේ ලොකුම වෙනස්කම් වෙන්න ගත්තේ. Let me just share with you a little more before I go into the story again of the bags. The idea of social entrepreneurship, right? Like, why is it important කියන එක? Entrepreneurship එක we understand its importance on some level. So why then is social entrepreneurship so much important, right? One is basically if you're looking at, you automatically through social entrepreneurship become a source of inspiration and a source of impact, because what you're doing is essentially changing a problem, right? So you automatically have an impact not just on your immediate group of people that you're dealing with, but on the wider society. The other thing is you're responding to a particular customer's needs. The third thing is obviously your relationship is beyond an economic purpose. You're not looking at only profiting from what is happening, but you're also looking at giving back. And I think this is really important. I think when we are looking at systems of businesses, I think we are so focused on the ideas of profiting that we don't often think about. I'm not trying to dissuade anyone from being an entrepreneur. By all means, be an entrepreneur. But at all points in time, I think we need to be reflective of what am I giving back? Or what am I taking away from this planet that I am then I am extracting something, but what am I giving back? I know that there are a lot of these kinds of panel discussions, and in a lot of these places, especially large conglomerates, they have a separate section called CSR, right? And CSR willing karanne, for me, for the large part, I think a lot of these organizations, especially some of the larger polluters, if you look at, I'm not going to mention in particular names of companies, but supermarket chains here in Sri Lanka, or plastic bottling companies, or soda companies, or drink companies, or there are various kinds of organizations that are heavily into CSR. But CSR for them, I think, is because they understand that they use it as a way to balance the bad press, right? And it's often not really about changing and reflecting on their own value system. And I think this is what's really, really, really dangerous. So they will, have a small, as an example, I'm not going to put you guys in trouble, to the organizers in trouble by sharing names, but you will have, for instance, a big plastic bin, like a kuduwa, where you're supposed to come and put your plastic bottles in, right? And it's seen as a very progressive thing because you can, it's seen that you can have your soft drink and then you can put this in and you're saving the planet, right? But just so you guys know, very rarely in Sri Lanka, very little of what we use as polythene and plastic gets recycled, right? We don't have the proper facilities. Garbage is dumped extremely poorly. ඒ කියන්නේ අපි හිතන තරම් මේ කාර්යක්ෂම විදිහට අපේ ගෙවල් වල එකතු වෙන කුණු ප්‍රතිචක්‍රීකරණය වෙන්නේ නැහැ. ඒ නිසාම we have to be conscious on our level. හැබැයි අතනින් අර ඒ ආයතන වලින් කියන්නේ කමක් නැහැ. ඔයගොල්ලෝ මේක පාවිච්චි කරන්න. මේක අපි රීසයිකල් කරනවා කියන මානසිකත්වයකින් අර මාකට් කරනකොට අපේ හිතේ තියෙන බිලට් එකක් නැහැනේ. අපිට ප්‍රශ්නයක් නැහැ. අපි සොෆ්ට් ඩ්‍රින්ක් එක බිව්වා අරකට දැම්මා. ඒගොල්ලෝ ගිහිල්ලා ඔක කරයි කියන. හැබැයි ඒක ප්‍රායෝගිකව වෙන්නේ නැහැ. ඒතර ඒවවල ප්‍රතිවිපාක ඒ කියන්නේ ocean pollution, of land pollution අපිට දැන් තියෙනවා. ඒවා ඒ කියන්නේ අපේ සමාජයේ if you look at it in our society, you can see how it affects humans who live next to these garbage dumps. Not just in Colombo, then I don't know how many of you are joining from other places in the country, but places like Putlam, where they were taking our garbage, Colombo කොම්ලගේ කුණු ටික එතනට ගෙනියලා දානවා because we didn't have the facilities to take care of it within Colombo. ලක්ෂ ගාණක් ගෙවලා අපි එතනට ගිහිල්ලා we dump it and we come back. I know this sounds like quite it doesn't sound like I'm here to talk only about social entrepreneurship, and I'm talking about the environment quite a bit, but I think this is really integral when we're talking about all of, I mean, I can only talk about my journey, and I'm not able to talk to you about the journeys of too many others, but the idea that we are very responsible for this world that we call our home. We don't, I don't believe that we have multiple options. It might be a very long time, guys, before we become, Elon Musk, or we become, Richard Branson, and are able to fly into space. So we have to take care of our resources and our land, and be conscious of that. So whatever we are taking, we have to be conscious of. And I think as entrepreneurs, sometimes we are looking at profit, so we're not concerned about those processes. But as social entrepreneurs, you have to understand all the processes plus the outcome, right? So stop number 3, we're looking at responsive business to create economic and social value, and also this idea of the social mission that's there to make the world a better place. Just checking on time. I think I have a little while more. So I'm not going to I'm just sharing this. So this is a product that we finally came up with. It's a 10-piece, like a reusable bag. It's a simple other. It's not like conceptually, it's not huge, right? It's just 2 tote bags, which are and then 8 smaller ready bags, right? But what we wanted to do with this is to encourage people to use these bags when they go shopping, so that they are bringing back no polythene when they come home. So even if you're buying sugar, you're buying rice, you're buying flour, you're buying kadala parithu, you're buying vegetables, fruits, whatever you want, and of course whatever you're buying from regular stores also, that you're buying from these places, right? Because realistically, if you're going to a supermarket, like, this is what you're going to see. You're going to see rows and rows of everything in plastic. Mind you, even family gediyat kapala, there is plastic over that also, right? Your botukola mitiya, kangkung mitiya, mukunu enna mitiya, evat kapala, evat within plastic, right? 3 tomatoes, 4 tomatoes, everything plastic. So these are, I mean, I think unconsciously we don't really realize the impact of single-use packaging. I'm not going to dwell on that too long, because this is not necessarily an environmental discussion, but this is more on entrepreneurship. So I'm going to move on. But as a result of that, I'm just trying to explain about social impact, right? So we started selling. I did initially a very small number of bags. I don't have I didn't have a huge setup. It was a very small setup. So we started selling from home initially. And then a couple of places in Colombo said, do you mind, you can leave our bags with us. We hadn't thought of it like, massively. We hadn't thought it through. We just had like a Facebook page and I had a single page website. But since then, we've been, selling these products. And now we retail in over 10 places in Colombo. And at the moment, we're in discussion with a buyer in the US. And it's been a really long and tough journey for us as a very small business, because there was, there's been a certain economic instability, COVID, prior to that, Easter Sunday. So a lot of small businesses were very badly impacted. But I'm explaining to you the social impact of these changes. For instance, something that we did eventually was we stopped shopping at supermarkets, and we shifted to shopping at only pullers and what we call articles or markets like that. We stopped buying pretty much anything. Like, instead of sponges, we went back to using polmudu. We take our own boxes for coconut or for meats. We refill up wholesale bottles. We take glass jars and we refill we take bottles and we get it done. Very difficult to maintain the same lifestyle during the pandemic, but we try. So the reason I'm also talking to you about this is that it's not just about 10 bags, right? It's not, our social entrepreneurship journey might have started with 10 bags, but as a result of those 10 bags, you're also curating their lifestyle, encouraging people to rethink how they shop. This idea of of conscious consumerism. When we are purchasing something, to be conscious of how and why we are purchasing it, whether we really need it. Do we really need it? Now, I know you guys, I don't know how many of you are, I'm assuming many of you are on Instagram. Influencers have such a huge take on what we do day to day. We subliminally see this messaging. We see 15% discount and again if you put in my code, then you receive 10% on the next buy you have, or whatever it is, right? So we are very influenced by what we see visually, and as a result of that, what we do, our purchasing is a huge part of our lives, right? So I think a lot of the businesses in our eco space, and I say eco space is because there are lots of us, right? I only do one product, but if you really look at it, there are multiple products and services. People who do, like for instance, the Good Market. I don't know if you guys know of the Good Market shop in Colombo. They also have it is a polar, but actually on Saturday they have a polar at Good Market. But more than just the shop, they also are network, right? So they create and they give you a certificate if you're a brand that follows these values, right? So a lot of the businesses within the Good Market range is pretty much all of them are social entrepreneurships. මොකක් හරි ප්‍රශ්නයකට සමාජයේ තියෙන මොකක් හරි ප්‍රශ්නයකට විසඳුමක් හොයාගෙන මේ පටන් ගත්ත පොඩි most of them are home run පොඩි businesses තමයි එතන වැඩිපුරම තියෙන්නේ, but there are much larger businesses also, including larger like hotel groups and stuff like that, right? So the reason I'm sharing this kind of thing with you also is because then it becomes more, this is very much about awareness, right? Because there are different kinds of social entrepreneurs also. There are not-for-profit organizations like NGOs, there are Grameen banks, there are different formats. There is no one particular akrutiya of a social entrepreneurship. It can mean very different things. It can be collaborations, it can be a buy one get one free kind of organization. Now there's I know this is predominantly boys on this group, but I'm going to share this anyway. There are these things called period cups, which women wear instead of like sanitary napkins, and instead of tampons that girls and women can wear. And there's a social entrepreneurship in India that manufactures this particular cup called a Boon cup. And so when we purchased one, in India, a girl in India gets 1 for 1 free, and that's a social entrepreneurship. We will purchase one, but the cost that we are giving that will enable them to give one more period cup to a girl from a rural area who has no access to sanitary napkins, right? So these are the different kinds of ways. There's a company called Bhumi in Sri Lanka, and they just even in how they they sell reusable straws, various reusable items, but they also sell reusable pre-loved books, so books that were used earlier, and to kind of create a culture valuing things around us, right? So I throw this picture in just to explain again about how we try to create social impact. So instead of talking just about the bags, we've also been talking about lifestyle change, about how, for instance, clothing is not something that we purchase anymore. We only buy and we only wear things that are secondhand, that are usually gifted down from us, or we purchase from people who we know would like to sell us their secondhand clothes, so that we're not creating more and more waste. I don't know again how many of you know this, but there's so much waste created in clothing because a lot of people, what we call fast fashion, you see it on a rack, you buy it, and in a few months time when it doesn't fit, you just pass it on or you throw it away. I think in Sri Lanka this idea of throwing away clothes is a little less. Because they but it's still a lot of consumerism. This idea of giving value to things that are old, to taking care of your clothes. If you look at it generationally, I think our grandfather's generation, I'm double, I think, in age to most of you, but those who are maybe even 70, 80, you look at how they care for their clothes, or how much longer they use their clothes for, right? or their shoes or whatever they are there, because they're so used to mending it, because there wasn't constant access. So they're always used to mending, taking care. But I think our generations aren't like that. So it's about unlearning all of that also. And then of course, like shopping ideas. We've completely shifted from shopping, like I said, in supermarkets to this. So this social entrepreneurship journey for us hasn't been purely about, it hasn't just been about a product, right? So when Dr. Sankalpa said you have to kind of live or practice what you preach and walk the talk, I think there's a lot of pressure on those of us who run social entrepreneurships to really understand and to speak up on behalf of those social problems, right? So now, for me, I run an awareness-based product, which is in direct waging war with single-use polythene and plastic, which means I am talking about the environment even in my sleep, right? And I'm not someone who comes from a massive background of like activism, yes, but I'm not an environmental activist per se. But I think through our pages and through what we do, we're then creating a larger consciousness about about these problems, right? That is an intention of something that we do. But there are different, like I said, another thing that we do is talking about valuing labor. I think you might have remembered when I first showed you the slide about entrepreneurship, we're talking about labor. Something that we try to share always is how valuable labor is, but how very little value is given in this capitalistic structure, right? Very rarely are people encouraged to understand how difficult it is to do things like manual labor, right? We don't value these things. I think with social entrepreneurships, especially if your businesses are based on giving back to society, you're automatically becoming more conscious. Consciousness, I don't think a lot of us who are running, like in our circles, who run social entrepreneurships, who've had about 2-3 years. Actually, Cali Bags will be 3 years on the 15th of August. So that's next week, right? So it's been a 3-year journey for us. And in these 3 years, we've learned a lot more, I think, than trying to market bags. We've learned about social problems. We've learned about the value of giving and taking both ways. We've learned about waste creation. We've learned about all of these things. So it's definitely been a process for us. And I think if you're looking at starting up a business of your own, even if it's not a social entrepreneurship, even if you're not trying to tackle even if it's, say, your family has a business that you're trying to take to the next level, or you're trying to be involved in and see what it can do, I think it'll do you a lot of good, and it'll do society a lot of good if you sit down and evaluate labor, your processes, what your resources are, where you get it from, how ethically these are sourced, how ethically the people that you employ are employed. And I mean, I think you'll find yourselves sometimes scratching your head a little bit, wondering, if this is really how it works. Because I think as long as we're super profit centric and we are only as a society placing value on and we consider success to be something that's only measured by money, right? I think that's the harm that we are creating now. I think that is the society that we are in now, and we can see how badly that's going for us, right? So as long as we're only understanding business as profit and business not as a transactional thing that goes both ways, giving and receiving, but also, understanding how we impact the larger picture of the planet, of the community we live in, of the neighborhood we live in, I think, we're in for a lot more trouble. So my kind of parting words to everyone would then be to learn to unlearn. I mean, in some sense, I don't mean to sound condescending when I say this, right? Like some very old auntie. But learn to unlearn. I think for us, it's taken many more decades. It's taken me 2 decades to learn to unlearn what I have been taught about how to measure success. When I was, between maybe 15 and even 22, what I thought of success was having, you know, a profitable business, looking a particular way, working in a particular office, or running a particular, you know, there was a very particular image that was ingrained into my head. And now I definitely don't see success like that. I'm very critical of a lot of you know, the places even that I have worked in before, the industries I have worked in before, the people I have worked with before, the people some I continue to work with, about how ethical their practices are. About how much they are giving back. And giving back isn't a CSR project, right? Guys, you have to understand this. You have these big conglomerates coming and talking about their CSR. Giving back isn't only about CSR. It's about having far more equitable platforms and understanding the communities that we work in. And I think that really is the model for success, right? Empowering communities and empowering people. And I think that's what's going to change. So you need to rethink labor. You need to rethink who your customer is. You need to rethink your purpose. So irrespective of what business you get into, or even if you get into a corporate setup, I hope you have the strength to understand that you should be questioning everything in there, right? It may not make you the most popular person, but I think you need to sometimes ask with your heart, because I think a lot of us have made the mistake in previous generations of just, you know, being very greedy with our resources. And giving back is something that is now integral to social entrepreneurships, and now integral to our lives, and it changes our lives as individuals, as people who are a part of these social entrepreneurships. Mine is a very small group of people through the business that I run. I know through some of the other platforms there can be huge communities. In you know, there can be a group of women who are making pots, or who are a group of men who are making, you know, plants, or you can have you know, multi communities doing different things. You can have one community making you know, from the north making sweets, and another community from the south purchasing it and reselling it. These are all different ways in which social entrepreneurships work. There are women who run not so problematic microcredit schemes for within their own communities, which have then kind of saved them from getting into larger debt, which is larger Shudramulyanaya Prashnayak. They have been able to manage it because they've managed their own finances through you know, various cooperatives. So these are all systems that we can learn to understand. And so I'm asking you to keep your mind a little open when you're looking at businesses for yourself. Maybe in 5 years, maybe in 10 years, maybe in 30 years, maybe you're going to inherit a business, maybe you're going to get into a business. Whatever it is, keep your mind open to unlearning what you're also being taught by people about how success is going to be measured. So that basically is all I have to share. And I know it was an incredibly personal journey, because I mean, I only have that journey to share with you, and I hope you didn't find it too boring. But Minita, do you have questions for me, or does anyone else have questions?
Yeah, Ms. So to start the Q&A session for the questions directed towards Ms. Rai Balthazar, I'd like to invite Harin Udugama.
Yes, Ms. Rai Balthazar, we received questions from our audience via WhatsApp and Zoom chat. I would like to direct you to one of the questions. The first question is, in social entrepreneurship, how can organizations use innovative ways to face social and environmental problems?
Okay, so how can I think, you know, but Dr. Sankalpa was so glad that I followed him, because he was talking about you know, about data also, right? So I think when we're looking at just because you're running a social entrepreneurship, it doesn't mean that you don't connect with innovation, with digitization, with all the other tools that are supposed to connect you with understanding the problem, right? Like my suggestion is, whatever you're being taught in those spaces, in order to change in order to better your businesses, all of those resources you need to use, right? Otherwise, you're going to be stuck in a particular place. But I think that is, I mean, what I've been talking about for the last half an hour is about how you can then use social entrepreneurship as a platform to create change, right? I mean, if you look at, okay, so I'll give you guys another example. If you look at Otara, Embark, right? Look at how she's taken a passion for animals, despite selling Odell off to SoftLogic later on. Look at how she used her passion for animals, created a brand by the name of Embark. Whatever money that comes through Embark then goes back to the many dogs that and strays that they use, they vaccinate, they take care of, and they house, and then she's managed to create some real social impact through a social entrepreneurship. There's another platform that she's created, I know, called Who We Are, I think that's what it's called, and that's looking at creating a platform for lots of individual vendors who you don't usually have like a huge through their social media, Harin, they may not have a lot of exposure. That's what I was looking for. They may not have a lot of exposure. So what does she do? She creates a platform. She says, you bring me your product and we will put it out on our platform and we will help you market it, right? That's social entrepreneurship too, right? Then there are those who use their platforms for as not-for-profit organizations completely, right? So you're definitely creating social, environmental, even in different ways. You're creating that impact, and you're using, but you still need to be able to do that. You need to use all these other plugins like innovation, like data, and I think like technology, like design. Design is such a huge portion of being able to tell your story, right? Like storytelling. So you're using all of these tools to then create change. I hope that answered that question. I wasn't sure if I got it right.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you so much. It was very well understood. The next question is, does social entrepreneurship, does it mean that we should create a company that is profit motive and at the same time that engages in charity? Or the social entrepreneurship, does it mean that it is a profit motive company that tries to reduce social and environmental problems?
So here's the thing, like I said again in my presentation at the beginning, profit isn't really the core of what you're trying to do, but you can't run certain businesses within the social entrepreneurship spectrum. You can't run businesses that are that don't cover your cost, right? Simply this. So I'll just tell you how Calibags works as an example. I do have a markup, which is a very minimal markup, right? And whatever the markup I have goes back into making my next bag, my next set of my next batch of bags. So it's not like I'm going to be very rich making bags, but the purpose is that I'm able to, because I keep the product at a slightly lower cost bracket, able to give it to a larger group of people who can then afford it, right? And then create the awareness on reusable bags and on single-use plastic. But I think it's the same for so many other organizations. It's not entirely about not making profit, but profit isn't the one thing that's important. You have, I mean, you can't function if you're not able to make ends meet. I think that is a expectation or a myth with social entrepreneurship. That is 100% charitable thing. Like you're not making any money off it, and I don't think it's that, right? There are models that might be like, but it's also about circular systems of economy within a community or whatever it is. So there is no it's not profit centered, but there will be profit. But how much of profit and what you do with that profit, I think, is what's important to factor in.
Thank you, madam. That's all the questions that we received for today. I will hand it over to Minindu.
Thank you, Harindu. And I do have a personal question. Where can we find Calibags?
I feel like this is a bit of an advertisement now. I feel a little bad about it. Well, I mean, we retail at the Good Market, at Celine, at Barefoot, at PR. We also deliver to anyone in Colombo. But check us out on Instagram. I think what we mostly do is we talk about stories about just creating consciousness. So if nothing else, and you guys are interested in understanding storytelling and how to just make people feel conscious about and how we struggle also on a daily basis. As a mother of 2 young children, I fight every day with this plastic toy business because my kids are always full of plastic toys. Today's post was about allowing children to think creatively and not always using plastic toys. So ඒ වගේ දේවල් ගැන තමයි ඇත්තට වැඩිපුරම කතා වෙන්නේ rather than just talking about the bags themselves, because it is an awareness creation conversation and it's a very two-way kind of relationship with lots of people who give us feedback and share ideas with us. And it's a great sense of pride and joy for all of us to be able to have that relationship. So whatever businesses you run, guys, just be conscious of what you take and what you give back. But thank you for the little plug, Minidu. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Balthazar. Thank you, Ms. again for showing the reason how and why we should do businesses and help the whole community using one's entrepreneurial skills. Wow, it's been an amazing experience for me and all the participants. It's for certain that we all received value and boosted our inner entrepreneurial fire that has been slowly burning within every one of us. So to end this glamorous event off, I'd like to invite Eranga Amaratunga to deliver the vote of thanks.
Thank you, Minidu, for giving me this opportunity. Am I audible?
Yeah.
Yeah, right. So good evening, Dr. Sankalpa Gambarige, Madam Rai Balthazar, teaching charge, Mrs. Manshika Peris, Board of Officials for years 2020-2021, my dear committee members and aspiring entrepreneurs. I, Eranga Marutunga, the Project Secretary for Imprenditor 21, would like to express my sincere gratitude to the below individuals who contributed immensely for this productive discussion. Dr. Sankalpa Gambarge, thank you, sir, for joining with us while sacrificing your valuable time on behalf of us. Once again, thank you for inspiring our aspiring entrepreneurs with the knowledge of digital innovation. Dear sir, because of you, these aspiring entrepreneurs will be innovating with new innovations in this entrepreneurial field. Madam Rai Balthazar, thank you so much, madam, for accepting my invitation. I just gave you one call and you said, definitely, yes, sir, I'll participate. Thank you so much, madam. I have no words. How can I thank you? I'm so much glad to have you in our session. Also, as an entrepreneur, you explained how social entrepreneurship is valuable by explaining the values and its impacts. Thank you, madam, for being such an inspirational character for our aspiring entrepreneurs. And I think you're the best example where you explained your story, your initial point of the business and the present condition of your business. Really happy for you, madam. Once again, thank you for joining with us. Teaching is a one profession that creates all other professions. Our dear teaching charge, Mrs. Vanshika Peris, thank you so much for advising with all your advisors and showing us the correct path. Next, I would like to thank our IAs who advised us and for having long hour Zoom meetings and guiding us while rectifying our mistakes. Thank you so much, IA. Last but not least, my dear committee members who came a long journey with me and Esendu Disanayaka, who is the chairperson of this productive discussion. An end is only a beginning. Once again, thank you to each and every person who helped us, at least from a single word. If you can dream it, you can do it. Good luck. Thank you. I'm Eranga Amratunga. Minidu, over to you.
Thank you, Eranga. And thank you guys for your support by joining today. Special thanks to all our 4 invitees from day 1 and day 2, our committee and all those who helped to make this event a success. And this concludes the Imprenditor 21 and you all can leave now.